going, and I gotta sync my cameras. Pshaw! That's why they do that little chalkboard clip.
Yeah.
You sync in the audio. He knows. He's a pro. He's like, yeah, you idiot. I've done this before.
No.
So you guys have to do my introduction. So all you have to do is look right into this camera, and
Okay.
Brian, you'll go first, and then Wayne, you'll go second, and then together you'll say, and this is Hay Bay City. So all you do is say, hi, I'm Brian Krause, and hi, I'm Wayne Hoffman, and this is Hay Bay
All right.
City. You like that? Okay, so whenever you're ready, Brian, you're going to lead us.
All
Just
right.
looking right into that camera.
Hey, this is Brian Krause,
And I'm Wayne Hoffman.
and this is Hay Bay City.
Wayne, I know you, so I'm going to neglect you for a second.
Aw.
Oh, sorry, but we'll talk soon. Brian, I'm so intrigued to talk to you first because we don't really know each other.
No, not much. Met at a couple eye openers, but other than
Yeah,
that, really
like
not a
we
whole-
kind of do the wave and shake.
Hey, Phil. Hey, how
Yeah.
you doing? Hey.
So before we get into the nitty gritty about this cool housing pilot program, Brian, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about Habitat.
Well, I am a Bay City resident. Was born and raised here, and spent most of my life here. Moved away for a little while, but other than that, been involved with nonprofits for quite a while. Worked with the American Cancer Society for a long time. One of my shining moments, we were like number 49 for the Relay for Life here. And I took it up to number 5.
Yeah,
And then it was like
ooh.
2 years later, I got let go. So,
But at least you ended on kind of a high note.
that's right. Yeah, there was like 600 people across the country, so I didn't feel that bad.
Yeah.
But and then I went to work for Habitat for Humanity, and this has just been a great job. I mean, I came in and we in 2019 came in and we had a neighborhood revitalization where we went through the neighborhoods and we cleaned up everything. Got up to 650 volunteers that year.
Oh, wow.
So I came in the year before they only had like 60. So I was like, yes, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to be great, So we're getting ready for the next neighborhood revitalization, and what happens? COVID.
Okay, of course.
So we lost all our volunteers. So we had been planning on building a house back in 2020, actually, and then because of COVID, we talked to one of our funders, and we said, hey, can we just go out and help people? And really, since then, we've been about 165 families here in Bay County. We've helped since that started. We've put in, I think, 72 furnaces. We've done probably about 15 or 16 roofs. We had one guy who was a veteran, and he hadn't been in his tub in like 3 years.
Wow.
And it was black mold and everything because of handicap. He was a 30-year Bay City firefighter along with being an Air Force veteran. So we went into his house. We put in did a whole new bathroom, did a walk-in shower. Then we ended up putting a hot water heater, a new furnace, painted his house, and a couple other things. So
Wow.
we do a lot for veterans. I think we've helped 60 veterans so far. We don't charge anything. We don't. We haven't charged really since the pandemic started. We haven't charged any families. We may get back into that a little bit more later. But for right now, we're going to concentrate this year. I'm very excited to be working with Wayne. Wayne's been helping me just immensely for the last probably 5-6 months. And we're working a program called the Missing Middle Program.
So before we get to that, like the little bit of a teaser. If you're listening and you didn't pick up all of what Habitat for Humanity does, Brian, maybe give us like a quick 101. What is Habitat? Who does it help serve? How do people get involved in that?
Okay. Well, first, let me get rid of the biggest, since we're going to be talking housing, one of the biggest, misconceptions, that's the word I'm looking for, is that we give houses away. It's like, oh yeah, Habitat just gives houses away and then they just let them go to, that's not true at all. I mean, in order to get a Habitat house, you need to apply for a mortgage. You need to get a mortgage. So you have to be able to get that. Each person that applies for a house has to put in, now it's going to change a little bit with the new program, but if you're over 18, you got to put in 250 hours of community service or sweat equity on the house. Mm-hmm. You have to raise like $1,000 in cash, and you also have to go through financial classes. And you have to do, there's quite a bit. And you have to do all that. If you have an 18-year-old in the house with you and you have 2 adults, That's 750 hours you have to do before you can get into that house.
Wow, that was one of the eye openers when I interviewed Habitat for Humanity over in Saginaw County, because that was my impression. Not necessarily that Habitat gave away houses, but go in, they'd fix the house, they'd peace out and leave, and maybe there's a form somebody filled out and got pulled out of a hat, but it is an incredibly rigorous process, one, to vet folks who are wanting this kind of help and support, but two, also to really set them up for success, because you don't want to give somebody a great house that's fixed and functional without giving them the tools to say, this is how you fix your furnace, and if you can't fix something in your house, this is who you call, and this is how you budget your money. I mean, it is such a robust program.
Yes, definitely. And like Bay City itself has like a 49% poverty rate. And then you have the Alice population, which is another like 24% or something like that. So, I mean, these are families that, I mean, they're out there working every single day. Both of them are working maybe multiple jobs, and they're still just making enough to get by and maybe go to dinner once. Right. But you know what happens when your car breaks down or your roof needs to be replaced or something like that? Then all of a sudden they're in financial ruins. I mean, they're like, they're borrowing money or they're doing whatever the case is. And that's why we try to help with that type of thing. Our slogan is we'd rather see them eat than heat. Because, and that's why we do so much weatherization, because we don't want, it's saving people money down the road. It'll help them. Something
you don't typically think about if you're not in that situation. We think our heaviest decision of the day is where we go out to eat at night and how much stress that is. But when you throw in something like, I'm a member of the Alice population and my car breaks down or my furnace breaks down or I can't pay the power bill or something like that, life gets really, really complicated and dominoes fall and everything just kind of goes to pieces. So you guys are doing the Lord's work. Wayne, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and the one thing I wanted to say too is it's amazing. We do a lot of work for veterans. And I get in and talk to these veterans, and people are like, "Oh, they get everything or whatever it is." It's like most of these veterans out here are getting between like $800 to $1,200 a month, and that's what they're living on. I mean, they were over there. I mean, they were in Vietnam, and they were fighting for us, and they're making next to nothing. So, I mean, just so you know, I mean, because people all the time are giving us grief saying, how come you're doing this for them for free? You're not charging them. It's like, because they did it for us.
Yes. Yeah. We are helping incredibly important people in our community who need an incredible amount of help. That's why we're doing it.
That's right.
Mic drop. Wayne, tell me about you. Who are you? Why are you here?
That's a good question. I just moved to Bay City. I grew up north of Bay City. But my wife and I, we took on a 150-year-old vacant house.
Yeah, you did.
And in that neighborhood, there's 2 vacant houses and 3 vacant lots. And I got to know Brian and started talking about the Missing Middle program to fill some of these vacant lots in Bay City. It's a new program through the state of Michigan, and I could help Brian with the funding side. That's kind of my specialty. So it's been great working with you.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. We've had some great times, and I didn't know how much it was going to be. I mean, this program, we thought it'd just be like, okay, let's put some numbers together, get some funders, and we're ready to go. And it's, we worked on it for a couple of months, and then we missed the deadline. I had a lot of family problems or whatever, so we missed that deadline. Now we're working on this next one, but matter of fact, today we might just drop it today.
Yep, today's the deadline.
Ooh.
So
yeah, it kind of sounds like any kind of renovation project, putting this program together. You think it's going to take 6 months and it takes 12 months, or you think it's going to cost X, but what an incredible program, trying to fill a need we have here in Bay City. So before we get into the details of the program, though, just for some context, you hear missing middle. And if you're not in housing, and if you don't have any sort of context, I think that phrase is going to be lost. So, Wayne, question for you: explain what is missing middle housing.
So the best way I could describe it, it's not your single family home, even though that's what we're building here. But the way I look at it is look at everything from your suburban home, single family home, and everything in between the building we're in right now, which is the Legacy downtown. It's a big apartment building. You have to fill in those gaps with 2 stories, 3-story walk-ups. Things like what we're doing in our neighborhood here. Vacant parcels that once had a big house on it, and we need to put something there again because we're taking a vacant house is not contributing anything to the city. It's tax base, it's blight. So we're trying to fill in those gaps.
The idea of missing middle, I think, is so critical to this conversation because we unfortunately have been trained by our culture to think there's two options for people to live in. Either you're living in a single family house or you're living in an apartment. But there's so many other variations of that not only fill gaps for different people in different situations. I may not be able to afford a house, but I can afford a duplex, or I can afford a triplex, or I can do this. It's great for people that are looking for options. It's great for the city because they look and say, well, we have all of these vacant lots, these vacant parcels, these vacant buildings that aren't doing anything for the city. It's not helping us in any way. And having these different variations and having people addressing housing is a win for every single person in the community.
Yeah, and another thing I'll say, excuse me, sorry about that, is a sheet of plywood that before in the OSB that you put on a roof or something, before the pandemic started, it was $8. Now, it got as high as like $50 a sheet. A 2x4 that was $1.47 for us got up to $7 and $8.
Wild.
So that's why, the house that we were going to build in 2020 was $130,000. It's about $200,000 now. Wow. So that's why they came up with this mixing middle program, because there's such a need for affordable housing, and people just weren't building, especially the builders and stuff, because it's like, I'm not going to lose money to build these houses. Yep. So they came up with this missing middle, and that's
that's kind of the unspoken dynamic, I think, in the housing conversation, because we need housing and we need more housing. In some of the information you sent me, it was something like 92% of the houses in Bay City were built before 1960. Yep. And so we need new housing, and we need more housing for all different kinds of people of all different demographics and salaries and things like that. But you have to have the people, organizations, developers interested and capable of building it. When you said that building costs have quintupled plus over the last 3 years, that puts a giant obstacle into really addressing housing issues.
Well, see, in a lot of these houses, too, you used to be able to go get a house for $5,000, $10,000. They'd be like, oh, yeah, hey, you get this house.
Order one on Sears, man. Like, I want that blue one. Check.
But, like all the blight housing, the houses like that, you could go there and you could go in and put, $20,000, $30,000 into it and turn it around. Now, to take one of those houses, you're going to put at least $70,000 into it, and then you still have a 60 or 70 or 100-year-old house. So it's still not, unless you do every single thing, you're still not going to be energy efficient. We're working really hard to cut the carbon footprint on these houses too. Cool. We'll be doing the basements. Most are like a 3%. The CF, the rating or whatever. These are going to be like up to a 40 on the basement. They're waterproof. The houses, we're putting bigger foam in there. We're air sealing the houses. We're doing, quite a bit that's going to make a difference. All the appliances will be Energy Star appliances. High efficiency furnaces.
Very cool. And I want to point out, just to tie that to something that we were saying earlier, is that all of those actions go a long way in helping the homeowner reduce costs after they take ownership of the home. It's not, well, we're blowing all our cash so that they can have robots clean the and fix the roof and stuff like that. This is reducing the cost after, because you want that person to live the rest of their life for as long as they want to in that house, as opposed to burdening them with something like, well, now they're paying $700 a month to heat their home. That's not great for everybody. That's a lose for everybody.
No, and that's what the mission of Habitat is. Our mission is that clean, safe and decent housing. We're not making castles here. These, these are a little bit nicer. Working with one of the local contractors here, GHC, and we're doing some really nice modular homes. It's
built in Bay County.
Built in Bay County. Yeah, that's the best of it.
That.
Bay County was huge back in the day with Sterling Homes and Aladdin Homes and stuff like that. All the kits, they'd ship them all over the country. Yeah. And now we're back to doing the same type of thing. And
that makes me feel all tingly inside. Reclaiming history. So let's dig into this program. Do you remember the moment when you guys first started talking about, like, hey, this would be a good idea, putting together Missing Middle?
Well, I have weird hobbies, and one of those hobbies is knowing when funding is coming from state and federal government. So I had been following this through the state budget process, that the Missing Middle was coming. And it was exactly what I think my neighborhood needed, because we have these vacant parcels.
Yeah.
And I know that there's other places, neighborhoods in Bay City that have that, and the same thing for Saginaw. And so I was really excited about it. reached out to Brian and said, hey, this is coming. Let's get something together. Came together pretty quick.
Matter of fact, yeah, I think it was, we were at that, Avram was doing the Franklin Street thing over at the library. And you came up to me and you were, because I said something about being at Habitat and you came up to me, we got talking, and from then on it's.
Oh, cool. I love that, Wayne, because like you took this step of investing in a neighborhood, and you saw a neighborhood and you said, well, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to do something as an individual to try to help this city, help this neighborhood. And then here's this additional step that you can look out and you can see what other people need by walking outside of your house. And then you're said, well, there's an opportunity here from state to get some kind of program we need funded. And then you did it. And I think it's just such a great way to go about it, because you're seeing a need and then you're doing something to fill a need. It's so easy for us to kind of default to say, well, somebody needs to do something about that, and we kind of shake our fingers in the air and then hope that it'll get fixed, when, man, it would be just great. Just go out and fix that problem yourself, and now everybody's happy. We can move on to the next one. So very, very cool. So what is the Missing Middle pilot program? Tell me about this. Give me the nuts and bolts.
Well, the Missing Middle program is for people who are in need of a house that maybe can't afford it otherwise. You go from 60 to 120% of the AMI, which, like, say for a family of four, I think you can make up to like right around $90,000 is you can make. I think the baseline is like $43,000 that you can make. But these are families that, normally probably could not. I mean, they can't afford a $220,000 house or whatever the case is. But now through the Missing Middle and through our community partners that we're going to be working with, I mean, we'll be able to maybe sell that house to them for $130,000 or $140,000. The other beautiful thing is that when we do that, I mean, you're going to have a basement that is really ready to finish. So we're not going to finish the basement for them. But I mean, down the road, I mean, they stay there 5 years. They're going to have equity in this house that's, probably $70,000 to $80,000 at least more than they paid for the house.
So it's wealth building as well.
Oh, awesome. So just to clarify, so that everybody's clear, these are brand new houses. Is that correct? Wayne, can you tell me a little bit about that? How many houses are they? What's the timeline?
Yeah. So our first run at this is going to be 4, and we want to do something that hasn't been done in a long time. I mean, Habitat's built a lot of houses, but in Bay City, we haven't built new houses for that middle. We've built new units, down by Breakers Cove and stuff, but you have to have probably 2 people making good money, 1 person making really good money to afford those. And right now, with construction costs so high, the gap for these families is going to be $80,000 to $100,000 to afford that house. So we're trying to add stock. We're trying to add nice new housing stock. It's not going to be, needing to be in that income range, 10 years down the road. It's just part of the cycle. And we're trying to raise the market here in Bay City. We got in this cycle of housing values going down, which is completely backwards of where we want it. We have construction costs going up really high, and the housing values are starting to catch up, but they're not going as fast as construction. So we're trying to narrow that gap, and we're trying to, fill in the gaps in the neighborhoods. Now, Bay City, this isn't the only neighborhood with vacant homes. So the next set is to go after the next show this works. Show it's something that Habitat can do. Habitat can do it. We just got to show that it is something that works, and then take the next step. Maybe next time we'll go for 8 or 12.
Ooh, 8 or 12. I like that. What is the timeline as far as the finishing of the houses?
Next 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
And that's the beauty of using the modular home too. I mean, it's still going to be, you're still using, 2x6s, good quality material. But instead of taking 8 or 9 months up to a year to build a house, now all of a sudden we have a place called Superior Walls coming in, putting a foundation in that's waterproof in 1 day. It's awesome. Ready to go. Yeah, you dig the hole, you put the foundation in the next day, pour the concrete floor, give it a day to cure, and then after that you set the house, and then really it's just finishing the stuff. So you can be done. Honestly, if you go full bore at it, probably in about 8 to 12 weeks.
Wow. The idea of checking off this, I don't want to say checking off this housing box because it's always going to be an issue. You can't really ever check it off. But the idea of how can we do this in a relatively quick time frame at a relatively low cost while also providing quality, while also being replicable, repeatable, because some people listening to this might think, well, it's just 4 homes, but that's the purpose of a pilot program, right? It's to figure out, how do we do this? How do we do it better? Can we repeat this? And like you said, next wave, fingers crossed, God willing, that it's 8 to 12 houses. And now we've got 16 houses that we haven't had built in the last 50 years. It's super, super cool. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and we're also looking at like duplexes and triplexes and different things too. I mean, where we can actually, we get an area. There's a house that we're working with the land bank, with Weston at the land bank, and he's going to have it torn down. He's got funding to do that. And then we're talking about putting like a duplex up on that on Raymond, that everybody knows about, that big greenhouse on coming in on Thomas Street that says it should be gone. We're talking about doing that over there. So, I mean, if we get into that where we can start putting up duplexes and triplexes.
Yeah, you've got one construction project, but now you've got two,
3 families.
Right? 2 or 3 families living in there. How cool, man. What is it going to take for, like, it? I'm thinking as myself, I'm not necessarily going to benefit from this. I'm not gunning for a home that you're building. But I do think that this is an issue that the community really has to rally around, because it is, when we talk about place and placemaking and urbanism and city planning, housing is one of the ceilings. You can't attract people to your area if there's nowhere for them to live. How can the average person either support you guys directly in this pilot program, or support this idea of addressing housing and building really an equitable community for all parts of our community? How would you like to see the community help?
Well, one big way is with philanthropy and just understanding the importance of a organization like Habitat, because Habitat's not like developers develop to make money, and Habitat's a little different. Habitat is here to develop. These houses will be sold. That means money's going back to Habitat, and that's being reinvested into the next project. Yeah. So it's kind of a really neat model. Habitat, that's obviously not all you do. I mean, Bay City, second highest percentage of homes that are over 80 years old. So we have tons of houses that are, lack maintenance. They're starting to get to the end of their usable lives. They need to be reinvested in, just like my home. Habitat can help with that, and we need to give more capacity, more resources to Habitat to do that. There's stuff coming at the state level, but unless you are investing on the local level as well, it's harder to access those resources.
Yep. Yeah. They want to see a mutual investment when you apply for some kind of funding. They want to say, well, we don't want to be solely responsible for this. What else have you got? And if you don't have that rest of what you got, it's really hard to make a case. Brian, anything else you want to see from the community?
Well, yeah, I was going to say too. You said 92% were built before 1960. 34% were built before 1900.
Wow.
I mean, that's 120. 120 years that it's been. Over 120 years. So the other thing we were talking about that you said at the first part of that was about building these houses. I mean, it's not just building a new house either. I mean, you're going into a neighborhood that has a house that has been vacant for years. I mean, the neighbors around it, they're mad that it's there,
Right.
They let the neighborhood go a little bit. All of a sudden, you put a bright new house in a neighborhood. All the neighbors, I mean, I know this from all the houses we bought and built and did, cleaned up and stuff. You paint your house, you do that. All of a sudden, your neighbor's doing it, and your other neighbor's doing it. And then all of a sudden, they're getting together. And the beauty of a Habitat house also is when we're setting that house, we're inviting the neighbors over. I mean, we usually have a couple days where we have, we're cooking hot dogs and we're doing stuff. 9 times out of 10, a couple of them are coming over and saying, hey, can I help with this? Can I do this? And all of a sudden, you have the family that's going to be moving in there that's helping out. So they're getting to know each other already. So they're moving into a neighborhood. They're going to know the people. There's just so many wins that it's gonna do to the neighborhoods in Bay County.
I love that you pointed that trickle down effect or trickle through effect of really providing something that's great for somebody, or stepping up your game, or leveling it up, or raising the standards in some way, because we all stand to benefit from something like that. We may not know it, We need 15 years down the road, we're not going to be able to put our finger on like that Habitat for Humanity house went up in that neighborhood, and because of it, my housing value went up, or this business came in, or something happened because of that. We may not be able to know those specifics, but it is such an incredible investment because that absolutely does happen. You cut your lawn a little bit more often. Whether they're motivated to try to like keep up with you or not, other people start mowing their lawn a little bit more often. You shovel your sidewalk as a downtown business more often. Other people are going to do it more often. It's really a way to get the community moving in the same direction. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and one more thing that we haven't talked about is the fact that, there's always been people building houses. There's always been people doing housing, but it's always been just like, okay, Habitat or these other places or whatever. We're bringing together a community. I mean, we have the city, we have the county, we have the land bank, we have a lot of outside investors, we have a lot of community partners like the United Way and different things that are all going to be involved in this now. So, and we'll just keep bringing people in. And the more we talk about this, and me and Wayne have been talking about it, I have people all the time saying, hey, can I help with that? I mean, is there anything I can do? Or, I was at the coffee shop the other day and all of a sudden we started talking and there's a group of 4 old guys. I mean, they're old guys. They're in their 75 to 80
very
or whatever.
Distinguished gentlemen.
Very distinguished gentlemen. But we started talking about it and they're like, oh my God, that's kind of stuff we want to do. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
We used to have a really great volunteer base here. We had a couple of guys that were in their 80s, and they were called the Sparkies. They were electricians, but they'd come in 2 days a week, and they'd come in at the shop and they'd work. We had like another 15 guys that would come every week, and they would just sit around the shop and they'd build stuff. And they used to build sheds and all these different things, and we'd put them out for sale or whatever. And they kind of went away with the pandemic, so we're trying to build that back up.
Awesome. Before we get into 2 more questions for you, just so that we have it very, very clear. Where's the funding for this program coming from?
So the funding, excuse me, is actually coming through. It's actually American Rescue Plan Act funding that the state got, and they're putting it into this program through MSHDA. Each home is eligible for up to $80,000 in gap, which is pretty darn close to the gap between the sale and the construction cost. The state is actually looking at putting more in, not American Rescue Plan Act funding. So it could be a permanent source. It's not the only program that the state is funding. This has become a very big issue at the state level. I remember talking about this 5 years ago, and it was like, okay, yeah, housing. And then COVID happened, and it was like, holy crap, housing.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it at the state level, the resources are going to be there. But you need to have the capacity, you need to have the know-how, you need to have the leverage investment to take advantage of it.
Yep.
So that's where we're at as far as with this program, trying to show this is how it's done. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. So,
yeah, and we're working at funding. The thing is, we've actually since 2020, what we've done is we really have just putting every penny back into the housing. I mean, to help people in the community. So any outside funding that we can help with, that we can find would really help. I mean, we have our website has a donate button on it, but I'd just rather have somebody send me an email or something and sit down and talk with them and tell them a little bit more about our programs and what we're looking to do.
Right. The idea of really teaming up to address this issue, I think, is such a critical one that even if people don't walk away from hearing this interview thinking like, I'm in love with housing and I want to build houses for everybody across the world. The idea of seeing a need and then figuring out who else in the community can help fill this need. I mean, you Wayne and Brian, you guys teaming up and saying, well, I have certain skills and you have certain skills and experience. Why don't we do this together? And then who else can we talk about? Who else has an iron in this fire already so that we can really address this thing comprehensively as opposed to just kind of spearheading something solo and then you kind of crash and burn when you hit a capacity wall and then everybody loses. You can really think like, how this is a community issue. We got to get the entire community involved. And so who has money that is willing to donate? Let's talk to them. Who's got skills? Who's got experience? Who has other contacts that we need? I mean, this idea of really pulling together community stakeholders at a large scale to fix a large scale issue is just a miracle. I just love it.
Yeah, we have such a great community. It's, with St. Patrick's Day just passing up,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
at a local establishment, and I was talking to this lady, and we got talking away, and ended up friending her on Facebook. Next thing you know, her daughter comes up, and she is the community engagement officer at the VA.
Heck yeah.
And she does this area. So it's like, I friended her, and we're talking now, and it's just like, it's just, there's such a great community. Just get out and talk to people.
Yes.
That's the problem. With these phones, we just don't talk enough. And get out and just talk to people, because you just learn so much, and you can help each other.
Amen. So great communities solve their problems together and
Find common objectives.
Yes, and I love this, because some people are like, well, isn't this podcast supposed to be talent attraction or retention? You bet it is.
Housing's a huge part of that.
Housing is a huge part of that. And then on top of that, I want to be part of a community that works together, that says, hey, we have this challenge, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to work hard, and we're going to solve it. And we're going to solve it in a very community-centric way with community partners built in Bay County, all of these things. We're going to solve this issue. We're going to check it off our list, keep working on it, move on to the next thing. That's the kind of community I want to be a part of. So, and you guys are playing such a critical role in that.
Well, and it is talent retention anyway, because right now I'm looking for somebody who's a grant writer and works with MISTA. I'm looking for a project manager that's going to be doing this. So, we're bringing more jobs into Bay County also. By doing this program, and if we start doing where we're doing, 8, 12 houses a year, we're going to need even more people that are going to be doing this work. So, we're bringing more jobs in too.
I love it. So last two questions. Let's give people the details on one, how to apply for one of these homes if they feel that this is something that they need. And then how to volunteer to help build one of these homes. How would people go about doing that?
Well, if you go to our website, which is www.habitatbaycounty.org, if you go on the website, you'll see at the top it says apply for services, and that's if you need critical home repairs, if you're a veteran and you need help, or if you'd like to apply to be a Habitat homeowner. If you'd like to do that, there's applications right online. Just fill them out, and then we'll get the information. We'll get back to you and let you know what the next step is. Cool. If you'd like to volunteer, if you go up at the top of the website, there's a volunteer button. So there's that. And then at the very top of the page, there's a donate button. So if they'd ever like to hit that maybe and throw a few bucks in there.
Heck yeah, do it. People hit all of those buttons. Head to that website. Well, of course, drop it in the caption on Facebook and Instagram, so you've got that for reference on the website as well. But I want to thank you two guys for coming by, laying this program out so that people can understand what exactly is happening. I know that people have talked about housing being an issue and us needing to address it, and here is a great way to do it with this pilot program. And if it wasn't for you guys talking and saying, hey, we are two people that can rally a bunch of other people into solving this problem, we wouldn't be sitting here. So I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by the interview today, and I wish you the best. I hope to see these brand new houses up soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bill.